This is an Eyewitness News election update. I'm Shade Better-Noir. Early voting in New York City well underway and with huge turnout so far. 223,000 votes cast today across the boroughs combined. As New Yorkers head to voting locations, they're voting yes or no on 6 ballot proposals. We're going to break down each of them so you know what to expect. That's ahead. But first, the race for New York City mayor and the candidates push today on the campaign trail. We begin with Eyewitness News reporter Safan Kim.
Thank you.
As the Democratic mayoral nominee pressed the flesh on the Upper East Side, Zoran Mandani could barely cross the street. This as a record number of early voters turned out over the weekend, 5 times as many voters as the last cycle. Voters ages 55 and older made up more than half of the turnout, a dramatic shift from the primary when young voters dominated. But Mandani says he's not worried.
Affordability is something that is robbing them of the ability to grow old in this city.
That's the beauty of the general election, is you learn that caring about the affordability crisis, looking to actually make life that little bit easier for New Yorkers.
I feel it. I feel it on the street.
Andrew Cuomo says energy is coming his way too, with a portrait of former President Obama over his shoulder at a senior center in Harlem today. The former governor leaning into a demographic he is counting on.
In the primary, the turnout was totally different than they thought. Much younger, and the younger vote was a much higher percentage.
That is clearly advantageous to the former governor, that the senior vote, which had been dwindling, is coming back almost with logarithmic proportions.
Former Governor David Paterson, meanwhile, hinting he's set to endorse Cuomo in the coming days.
Governor Cuomo and I were trying to do it, and we had a schedule problem the other day. We want to do it together, but I think it's very clear that among the candidates, which would be the right one for the city, it would be the one that has the most experience.
Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa says Paterson's endorsement won't be changing any voters' minds.
If I were Governor David Paterson, who I know well, I would stop making an embarrassment of myself, because this guy can't figure out from one day to the next who he's endorsing.
And that was Safan Kim reporting. In addition to casting a vote for mayor, New Yorkers are being asked about 6 ballot proposals. And joining me now is Laura Tamman, clinical assistant professor at Pace University. And Laura, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, Laura, let's get right into the ballot questions, which could change the state's constitution and revise New York City charters. And many of these are really important questions. So let's get voters up to speed. Question number 1 is the only valid one that appears statewide and would allow the expansion of new ski trails in the Olympic Sports Complex in Essex County. A yes would allow the ski trails and increase the acreage of Adirondack Park. A no means nothing changes. So, Laura, can you explain the concern some have voiced about this proposal?
I've really only heard support for this proposal. This one is really about bringing existing development into compliance with the state constitution. All the environmental groups are in favor of it, and I haven't heard of any credible opposition.
Okay, so that's an easy one for voters. The second question is a major issue that has come up in the campaign trail. We have all heard about it, affordability and about building affordable housing. Proposal number 2 aims to fast-track applications delivering affordable housing in the community districts that produce the least affordable housing, which is significantly reducing review time. And Laura, I know many people don't realize there's actually a very long process for zoning approvals, which can take up to 7 months to complete. Can you explain the 2 processes and how that would be enacted with a yes or no vote?
Yeah, I can in general terms just say that this would on its face speed up the process for developments in certain areas. It wouldn't apply to all, it would only apply to some. But advocates for this proposal, as well as the other 2 that are related to housing, say that they're essential in order to build the kind of housing stock that New York City needs in this moment.
Okay. Proposal 3 is to simplify review of modest housing and infrastructure projects. And here the review process would be cut from 7 months to 90 days. That's significant, Laura.
It is significant. It does change the timeline, but New York City already, and even with the change, has significant community input. So it's really a question of, do you feel like we have maybe a little too much community input, or do you feel like we really need this longer time frame in order to make effective decisions?
Okay. Proposal number 4, establish an affordable housing appeals board with council speaker, local borough president, mayor, and citywide representation. So this is an important issue because it strips the mayor's power of a veto when it comes to affordable housing projects. The power is shifted to a 3-member housing appeals board. So Laura, explain the controversy surrounding this.
Well, this would give our borough presidents a little more power than they currently have. They don't currently have a lot of power, so this is seen as a useful upgrade by proponents to give them more power that should be vested in them. I just want to note that all these proposals, advocates see them as a group, and that if they all pass, that will significantly reduce the city council's power in New York City and give that power largely to the mayor. So it would enable whoever the next mayor is to enact their agenda more quickly when it comes to housing.
Okay. Now let's talk about Proposal 5, which is creating a digital city map to modernize city operations. And I'm surprised, Laura, there isn't just one digital map at this in this day and age. And upon researching, I found that there are more than 8,000 maps citywide because each borough had to maintain their own set. So
That's
this could
right.
certainly simplify things.
8,000 paper maps.
Wow.
So I feel like this amendment should be called the "Are you kidding?" proposal, because yes, it's to create one centralized electronic digital map of New York City, which I'm sure many of your viewers are wondering why we don't already have.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's an easy one for sure. And question 6. This next question would really impact voter turnout for future elections. The proposal is to move local elections to presidential election years. Voter turnout in the current off years has really been poor, Laura. And I know according to the election board, there are roughly 23% of voters in 2021 went to the polls to elect a new mayor. Although for so far this go round, voter turnout is now up compared to 2021. I know it's 5 times as many people voted early over the weekend.
Yeah. So this proposal is fascinating, and I think the most exciting on the ballot. In 2020, 3 million New Yorkers went to the polls to vote for president. And then just a year later in 2021, only 1 million voters showed up to vote for mayor. So this law would not by itself, but it would be a step towards aligning New York City elections with presidential elections. And it could double or possibly even triple voter turnout, depending on which elections you're looking at. So this is one to vote for if you want more people voting and more people having a say in city elections.
Yeah, I think that this is a really huge ballot question. And not only would this actually create more voter turnout, but this could save a lot of money. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars. I know the Independent Budget Office estimated that $42 million a year would be saved by enacting this.
That's right. It would not just double or potentially triple voter turnout in these municipal elections and attract what I would argue is much needed attention on local issues and local candidates, but it would also save taxpayers significant amounts of money.
Wow. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us, for giving us your insight, informing viewers of what to expect when they go in to vote. Again, Laura Tamman from Pace University.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And we're turning now to the race for New York City mayor. The 3 candidates have 3 vastly different ideas on how to run the city over the next 4 years. Eyewitness News anchor Bill Ritter sat down with all of the candidates and takes a look at how each will make the city more affordable for New Yorkers.
It's some of the highest rent in the nation, coupled with some of the lowest vacancy rates. childcare that can cost upwards of $20,000 a year. Then there's the rising cost of utilities, groceries, and other everyday items. There's no question New York is facing an affordability crisis. But for voters, the question remains, who's best to make New York more affordable by becoming the 111th mayor of the biggest city in the nation?
This is New York. We can afford to dream.
From the very start of his campaign, Zoran Mandani has made affordability his signature priority with a plan to freeze rents.
8.5 million people call this city home. Close to 2.5 million of them live in rent-stabilized apartments. The city has the power to freeze the rent for those apartments. The mayor has used that power to increase the rent by more than 12%. So one way that you make life more affordable is you freeze the rent for 4 years and you say the rent you're paying now is the rent you're going to pay next year.
He also wants to build 200,000 new affordable housing units over the next 10 years. Implement free childcare for every New Yorker from 6 weeks to 5 years old. Create city-owned grocery stores and eliminate the fare on all city buses. Now, to pay for all this, Mr. Mamdani wants to raise the corporate tax rate on businesses and increase the personal income tax on New Yorkers who earn more than $1 million a year.
Rent is too darn high all across the board. Middle-class families, working families, it's out of control.
For Andrew Cuomo, a former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under President Clinton, the answer to making New York more affordable centers around development.
We're going to look at sites all across the city, private sites, public sites, city-owned sites, partner with the faith-based community, and we're going to build, I want to start in the first 100 days, 80,000 units. We need 500,000 units, and we can do it.
Mr. Cuomo is also calling for capping property taxes at 2% for struggling homeowners, ending taxes on tips, and raising the real estate transfer tax threshold to $2.5 million to make it easier to purchase a home.
I'm worried about the blue-collar working-class people in the city who can't run away like billionaires.
Calling himself the working-class candidate, Curtis Sliwa has proposed repealing the so-called City of Yes zoning policy and instead give that power back to local communities. He also wants to convert vacant office buildings into housing units and push to cap annual property tax increases at 2%.
And the one thing you can control, the property tax, and cutting this extraordinary budget of $118 billion that is growing by the day, cutting the Department of Education by $10 billion, it's bloated, cutting the Department of Buildings, which is corrupt and inefficient and stifles growth.
And that was Bill Ritter reporting. Tomorrow, we look at how the candidates are looking to tackle crime. 3 candidates, again, with 3 very different ideas. That's tomorrow. And a reminder for you, early voting is underway in Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, and ends in all 3 states on November 2nd. Of course, Election Day is November 4th. I'm Sade Better-and-Wild. Full coverage on all of the big races ahead of Election Day on ABC 7 NY.